Rain tapped softly against the window as the city woke to another ordinary morning. But for Jordan, this day was everything but ordinary. His shirt was ironed, his resume perfectly folded, and his hopes were hanging on one single event, the job interview that could change his life. He'd been unemployed for months, living off dwindling savings and quiet prayers. Each night, he asked God for one thing. Just open one door, Lord. Just one. When he got the email inviting him for an interview at a company he dreamed of working for, he took it as an answered prayer. Everything was supposed to go right that morning, until everything went wrong. The alarm didn't go off. The bus he planned to take broke down halfway, leaving him stranded under a gray sky with no taxis in sight. His hands trembled as he checked the time, 9:17 a.m. His interview was at 9:30. Even if he ran, even if everything else lined up perfectly, he'd never make it. He felt panic rise in his chest. Months of preparation, all slipping away. He tried calling the office to explain, but no one answered. The rain grew heavier, soaking his clothes as he stood on the curb, defeated. At that moment, something inside him cracked. God, he whispered, why now? Why let me get this far just to lose it all? No answer, just the sound of rain, cars, and the ache of disappointment. Jordan finally gave up trying to reach the company. He sat under a small shelter near the bus stop, staring at the puddles forming on the pavement. Everything he'd worked toward suddenly felt meaningless. That was when an older man, probably in his 70s, walked up beside him. He was holding a small paper bag and an umbrella, smiling like the rain didn't bother him at all. "You're waiting for a bus, son?" the man asked. Jordan nodded. "I was supposed to be somewhere important, but I missed it." The old man chuckled softly. "Sometimes, missing something means God's saving you for something better." Jordan forced a smile. Something better? He wanted to believe it, but right then, he couldn't. The man offered him part of his sandwich, and though Jordan refused at first, he eventually accepted it, not because he was hungry, but because the gesture was kind. They talked for a few minutes. The man said his name was Henry. He spoke about how he'd once lost his job unexpectedly, only to find himself later running a small charity that fed hundreds every week. "Losing that job felt like a disaster," Henry said. "But now, I see it was just God's way of rerouting me." Before leaving, the old man pulled out a small folded card and handed it to Jordan. "If you ever need a warm meal or some company, come by this address. We serve people every Thursday evening." Jordan slipped the card into his pocket, thanked him, and watched him walk away. That evening, still weighed down by disappointment, Jordan opened his laptop to send an apology email to the company. Before typing, he decided to take a walk to clear his head. He passed by a few streets, trying to shake off the sadness, until he realized he was near the address on the card Henry had given him. He hesitated, then thought, why not? When he arrived, he found a small community center glowing with light and laughter. Volunteers moved back and forth serving warm meals to people, the homeless, single mothers, and anyone who needed a little kindness. Henry spotted him and waved. "You made it." Something about the atmosphere felt peaceful. For the first time in weeks, Jordan felt like he could breathe. He offered to help serve food that night, and Henry gladly accepted. By the end of the evening, Jordan wasn't thinking about his missed interview anymore. He was thinking about the people he met. A woman who lost her home but still smiled. A teenager trying to rebuild his life. A man who'd just found faith after years in addiction. As he was cleaning up, one of the volunteers came up to him. "You're new here, right?" "I'm Claire." They talked for a while. Claire mentioned she worked for a local nonprofit organization that helped people find employment and housing. When Jordan mentioned his background in business management, her eyes lit up. "Wait, we've been looking for someone with that experience. Our current coordinator just left." It felt too strange to be a coincidence. Within a week, Claire introduced Jordan to her director. The interview was casual, natural, nothing like the one he'd prepared for. 2 days later, he was offered a position as an outreach coordinator. His first paycheck wasn't huge, but the purpose behind it was priceless. Every morning, he woke up knowing his work mattered, helping others, serving God, and using his gifts for something beyond himself. One afternoon, months later, he walked past the old bus stop where he'd first met Henry. The rain was falling again, softly this time. He smiled, remembering how what felt like failure had become the turning point of his life. He whispered, "Thank you, Lord. You knew what I didn't." Jordan's story is one that reminds us how God often hides blessings in detours. What seems like a delay, or even a disaster, can be the doorway to something greater. Isaiah 55 verse 8 says, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways." At the time, Jordan couldn't see it. All he saw was disappointment, frustration, and confusion, but heaven was already rearranging his steps. Missing that interview wasn't the end. It was the beginning of something divine. Sometimes, God closes one door because he doesn't want you to settle for what's good when he's preparing something bigger. When Jordan shares his story now, he often laughs softly and says, "I missed the interview that day, but I walked straight into my purpose." He never saw Henry again, but he still keeps the small card the old man gave him, tucked inside his Bible. It reminds him of how God sends people at just the right time, even when we don't understand why. So if you are watching this and something hasn't gone your way, maybe you missed an opportunity, lost a job, or faced a closed door, remember this: God's silence doesn't mean his absence. His delay doesn't mean denial. Like Jordan, you might be standing in the rain right now, wondering why your plan fell apart. But perhaps, just like him, you're not losing something. You're being led to something better. Trust the one who sees the whole picture. Trust the one who writes stories that don't end in failure, but in redemption. Because sometimes, the missed interview is just the first step toward walking into something far bigger than you ever imagined. If this story touched your heart, take a moment to subscribe. Join us as we share more real stories of faith, hope, and the power of God's hand at work in everyday lives. Your subscription helps spread these messages to others who need encouragement. Thank you for watching this episode.